Hey guys, Dave Keller here with Market Misbehavior. Hope you had a fantastic holiday season. Happy New Year, happy 2021. I wish you all the best this year, and I hope we are able to continue a journey of mindful investing through the course of this coming year. I'm often asked around year end, it's a natural time around the holiday season to be thinking about your routines, your decisions, how you're going about structuring your day, structuring your process. And the new year is a natural time that we, now have come off the holiday season and now it's getting back to work. And today, for example, on January 4th, it's back to reality, it's back to the grind, and it is very, very easy in a point like right now to slip back into bad habits, right? Slip into the habits that we developed over the last year, over previous years, and getting back into the swing, getting back into the routine. Unfortunately, for most of us, means getting back to some very good habits, but also, unfortunately, some less than good habits. And this is a natural time to try to break those old processes, break those old habits, and develop some good routines that are going to help set you up for success this year. So what I wanted to do today is share with you 5 mindful habits for 2021. So Market Misbehavior, this channel is really driven off of what I call behavioral investing, which is, essentially is a journey of self-awareness, to have an honest conversation with yourself, understand how your brain is wired, how you are wired to make decisions, and then try to set yourself up for success by surrounding yourself with processes, habits, routines, resources to minimize the negative impact of behavioral biases and maximize your own strengths and hopefully make better investment decisions, but even more importantly, feel better about making better investment decisions. So when I'm asked about how to sort of think about this new year period, I usually give people some mix of these 5 mindful habits. So we'll go through them one by one. Habit number 1 is to start a journal. And I've written before and I've spoken a number of times about the 3 pages. This is a process that I learned about years ago from the book The Artist's Way and The Artist's Way at Work, which are basically books built around unleashing your creativity. The thesis is your mind has just a lot of baggage, a lot of stuff floating around. I think you could probably see that that's the case. Hard to deny that for most people because it's hard to think clearly and think creatively when you have all this other stuff going around in your mind, things you're worried about, things you're anxious about, things you're concerned about, things you're planning for, what you're going to have for dinner, what are your kids doing, all these sorts of things. And as investors, we certainly run into those same problems. So, as much as we are taught that investing is all about, developing an emotionless process and just sort of being more and more like a robot, I don't think that's necessarily the case. And some of the best investors I've ever worked with are really creative thinkers. They are able to think outside of just the normal routines and think about relationships and think about the impact of a certain scenario, of a certain new product or a new company and their potential for growth, and thinking about the ripple effects of certain news events and certain headwinds and tailwinds to their different investments. So there's a creative part, there's a right-brained component to investing, just like there's a left-brain component. The left brain side is more about details, it's more about getting in the weeds, but the right side is really about thinking big picture, thinking outside the box. The book that Dow Jones Averages talks about that balance between left and right brain. They call it whole brain investing and combining those two. So my first recommendation to you, my first suggestion or first mindful habit is to start a journal. So 3 pages every morning is what I've done for years, and I have these cheap notebooks that I get off of, I get wherever, and every day I open up to the next page and I fill 3 pages, notebook-sized pages, with whatever is on my mind. And I will tell you that is a tough thing to start because at the beginning it's really difficult to sort of get in the habit. But now there are very few days. I think I took Christmas morning off, but that was about it. Pretty much every day I do that. For me, it is just it's now what sets me and reinforces for me where I want to be focused, who I want to be, and what do I want to accomplish with a given day. So starting a journal is it's a fantastic mindful exercise because what it does is it helps you have a healthy conversation with the voice inside your head. And for a lot of investors and a lot of people, that voice inside their head a lot of times is the most negative voice you're going to hear compared to anyone else or anything else that you'll come in contact with. You can be really hard on yourself, as you probably know, right? We're our own worst critics. So having a good conversation with yourself allows you to, have a little more transparency and understand why you're going about things in a certain way, help you unpack some of those bad habits. You may not even realize some of the habits that you've developed over recent years, but keeping a daily journal is where you're going to be able to do that. Related to that is a trading journal. That's sort of outside the scope of this, but as a very mindful exercise for investors, for sure, is keeping an accurate record of what you're trading and why. And I would argue what your mental state is at that point. What are you thinking? How are you feeling about it at that time? That can help you address some issues down the road. So point number one, habit number one, start a journal. If you've never done it before, just give it a shot. Do it right now or do it tomorrow morning. Just get out a notebook paper, get out a piece of paper, 3 of them, and fill 3 pages with whatever on your mind. You're gonna be amazed at what comes out of that over time. Mindful habit number 2 is to find a way to upgrade your weekly routine. Hopefully you have a weekly routine. As an investor, I always tell people, the most important things you can do is have a good daily routine and a good weekly routine. And when I find people are in a bad place, and not just in a bad place performance-wise, but just struggling with, overwhelmed with the markets and the uncertainty and the volatility and the challenges that are inherent in the financial markets. I find there's usually some gaps in their daily and weekly routines. How are you spending your time, right? When you think about, I always talk about the morning coffee routine. What is the first thing you do every morning? You get your cup of coffee, you sit down in front of a screen of some sort. What do you do? And by listing that out, I bet you'll find at least one thing you can improve on. But here we'll talk about our weekly routines, right? Which is basically every week for me, it starts on Thursday when I do an analysis of the markets and I start to put together a note for my clients. And then Friday, I have my weekly wrap show on Stock Charts TV. Saturday into Sunday, I'm reviewing a bunch of charts. I review all the S&P 500 charts into Monday, which is my another analytical show where we go through big picture, sector rotation, and bottom up stock picking. And for me, going through all 500 S&P names has become something I've just gotten really used to doing. It helps me make sense of things week over week. And so, I've thought a lot about that weekly process from Thursday to Monday and what should be included in that, how I should go about it. And I would encourage you to think about your daily and weekly routines. Where is somewhere, and again, if you're not sure what to do, think about what you do. If you don't have an explicit routine, think about what you tend to do every day or every week to review the markets, to review your portfolio, review your positioning, to make changes to your positioning, to look at what the markets overall are doing and try to develop your own investment thesis. What is your process for doing that? And your regular process, not just one-off things, but what is your regular daily and weekly process, and list all those things out from the thing that you feel most comfortable with, that you're absolutely crushing it, to the thing at the bottom of the list. And if you have to put them in order of effectiveness in terms of how effectively you are addressing those pieces of your routine, what do you feel the best about and what do you feel the least good about? Look at that thing you feel least good about and think about what's one way you could just tweak that. Just one little incremental upgrade to that part of the process. And if you keep doing that, keep upgrading the weakest part of your process, overall the average starts to go up and you'll feel better and better about it. So my second habit for you is look at your routines. It could be your weekly routine. If it's your daily routine, that's fine too. But think about how you could upgrade your routines in the new year. The third mindful habit is to think about what you're reading and what you're watching. There is an unlimited amount, a virtual unlimited amount of media out there, financial media, of writing, of thought leadership, of thought-provoking content, of TV, podcasts, newspapers, periodicals. It's unlimited, right? Blogs and so forth. Obviously, market misbehavior should be at the top of your list, and I say that with a dose of sarcasm. It's all about what you're consuming, and what I would suggest is just start with a blank piece of paper and just start listing out what are all the things that you read or watch or listen to over the normal course of a week. Think of the last month even. What's everything that you've looked at, and put that in order, and then start to put in order of what has been the most valuable to you in terms of empowering you to make better investment decisions and better decisions in general. Put it in order from most effective to least effective. The things at the top of your list, think about how you're incorporating those into your weekly and daily routines. The things at your bottom of your list, the least effective stuff, do you really need that very bottom one? Probably not. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of times we are programmed just based on social media and the short-termism with tweets and the flickering ticks of the markets. We are naturally, I think, have evolved to be more short-term oriented in terms of the content we're consuming. And I will tell you, the people that I have known and respected the most are not consuming as much short-term content, short-term, timely, but very, limited value timing-wise content. They're looking at more of the long-term, timeless, really effective stuff. I would argue, as much as reading a note about what the S&P is doing in the last 24 hours can be helpful and can to help you feel like you're on top of things. Reading something like Reminiscences of a Stock Operator and thinking about the challenges that Jesse Livermore faces 100-odd years ago, and the similarities behaviorally between what he was trying to accomplish and what you were trying to accomplish looking at the stock market today, I would argue that is many, many times more meaningful and more impactful in your process potentially than reading a quick news clip on the S&P 500. But again, there is this necessity that we've been fed by a lot of financial media and other media, to be honest with you, and especially social media, that you need to know everything the moment it happens, and there's a need to have real-time data and clarity. And I will tell you, for most investors, that's too much. You should be thinking in terms of longer term and thinking more about week to week and month to month and less day to day or minute to minute. So make sure that the content you're consuming is more in line with the questions that you're actually trying to answer as an investor. So I'm often asked about financial media, should we just turn it off? And plenty of people have said just turn off CNBC, Bloomberg TV, Stock Charts TV, any of those things, and just focus on your own process. And I think for some people that certainly could be a better idea. And if you're going to consume it in the wrong way or consume it not at all, I would argue not at all is probably better. But the best option would be to use it thoughtfully and deliberately. And I think that's where I would hope you can focus. There's nothing wrong with consuming financial media, with reading things like Barron's and Investor's Business Daily and periodicals, Wall Street Journal, if you're using them to help challenge your own investment thesis. You think gold and precious metals are going to do a certain thing, you start to read content and listen to experts giving a bull or bear argument, right? People talking about why precious metals should go up, people talking about why precious metals should go down or could go down, and then thinking critically about the strengths and weaknesses of those arguments and how they relate to your own investment thesis. I would argue that's actually a really good use of financial media. So there are plenty of wrong ways to use a lot of things out there that can be beneficial. Same with social media. I think social media can connect you meaningfully with people that you would otherwise not connect with. But there are a lot of negative impacts that can happen if you spend all your day looking at your Facebook feed and comparing yourself to other people's pristine, curated lives that you're seeing on social media. So, it's another example where there are plenty of unhealthy ways, but plenty of healthy ways to do it. So habit number 3, and sorry for rambling, is to think about what you're reading and what you're watching. And again, I don't think you need to cut a lot of things out. I think you just want to be more thoughtful and more deliberate about how you're consuming things, what you're consuming, and when you're consuming them. And again, the way I would do it is list out all the things you have watched or read or listened to over the last couple weeks. Maybe with the holidays, go back a month or something, 6 weeks. List everything. And then listen in terms of order. What has been most impactful? What has had the most impact to help you make better decisions, down to what has been the least impactful? Get rid of at least 1 or 2 things at the bottom and see if your mindfulness or your mental state starts to improve a little bit. 4th option, review the top performers and bottom performers in whatever universe you work with. So, for me, I work with a lot of financial advisors that are doing an asset allocation decision or are doing some portion of active management, some stock picking. And so I always tell them, look at the S&P 500 and look at the stocks that performed the best over the last year, the stocks that performed the worst over the last year. Or if you're an asset allocator and you're looking at a universe of ETFs, look at all of them, look at the calendar year, and look at the strongest and the weakest. The strongest handful, 5 or 10, the weakest handful, 5 or 10. What happened with those top 5 or 10 things, right? Those assets. What happened to those ETFs? How did those stocks actually continue that trajectory? They all started at a certain percentage, a 0 point, and then these things bubbled up to the top. At what point did you capture those? Did you identify that those were the places to be? At what point did you miss something? If you didn't own some of those, and out of your universe, if you missed out on some of those best opportunities that would have helped you outperform the most, what did you miss? How did you miss those good opportunities? And think about how your process helped you identify or did not help you identify the best places to be. On the other side, did you own anything that was in that bottom of the pack, right? Did you own any of the worst performers? And if so, what happened? How did your risk management process essentially fail to get you out of those underperforming assets? So by doing that with some regularity, I think once a quarter can be really helpful. Once a year at the very least, look at a year like 2020. Look at how you performed. Look at what did the best. Look at what did the worst in your universe of assets that you're looking at, and think about the characteristics at the top and bottom, particularly about what your toolkit, how that informed your decisions to be in or out of some of those assets. And I think a lot of times that's a really helpful way to quickly identify some gaps in your own toolkit and think about what you might want to add for this coming year. Finally, and arguably the most important of all of these, breathe. You can't see my monitor, but right down there, I have a couple post-it notes on the bottom of my monitor. I'm very selective as to what I have in front of me essentially all the time. And one of my post-it notes, no joke, just has breathe, underlined with a period. Because it is so easy when you're anxious, when you're getting into tasks, when you're having virtual meetings, when you're looking at the markets, when you're doing a show, whatever it is that you do, and you're trading, you're talking to clients, you naturally tend to breathe a little more shallow, and you tend to, at least I tend to, and a lot of people put a lot of stress in their shoulders and neck area as you kind of hunch over and kind of get all tensed up. And so for me, occasionally it's to remember that the best breaths you can take are the deep cleansing breaths, to sit, deep breath in, and breathe it out, and even think as a breath exercise. Breathe in, the negativity, and then breathe it out, right? Breathe in maybe that's not a good way to do it. Breathe in the positive energy, breathe in the open-mindedness, breathe out the negativity, breathe out the stress and anxiety. And if you do that regularly, just remember to not get so caught up in what you're seeing, what you're typing, what you're doing, what you're watching, that you forget to just breathe as a human is designed to do, which is deep from using your diaphragm. Doing that is going to help you just be in a better mental place to address those other 4 habits that we talked about. So as a recap, my 5 mindful habits for 2021. Number 1, start a journal. And if you've been doing it, fantastic, keep it up and do it every day if you can. If not, just give it a shot. Get 3 pieces of paper or a notebook. Just start filling those out every morning with whatever is on your mind, and you will be amazed at what sort of clarity comes out over time. Number 2, upgrade your routines. And you can think about your weekly or your daily routine, even both. And again, what I love to do with something like this, with a multi-step process, lists out all the things that you do on a regular basis. And if you have an explicit routine, that's great, use that. If not, just think about what you tend to do on a normal week. What are the things that you tend to, you have to do, or you need to do, or you want to do? And then list in terms of how good you feel about, from top to bottom. How good, how effective do you think each of those steps are going right now, or how well you're accomplishing those? And look at the bottom and see if you can just tweak up, just do little upgrades to those things at the bottom of the list. That whole thing is going to get a little better. Number 3, think about what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're listening to. List out everything you do in a normal routine. Think about your last 6 weeks or something. What's everything that you've watched, read, listened to? Websites, TV channels, online content, blogs, podcasts. List everything out that you can think of, and then list in terms of most valuable to least valuable in terms of actually helping you make better decisions. And get rid of the 2 on the bottom, 1 or 2 on the bottom. See how that helps you think more clearly and more effectively. Number 4, review the top and bottom performers in whatever universe you're working with. I always think of it as a benchmark review. I do this at the end of every year and go through the top and bottom stocks in the S&P 500. It's a fantastic exercise, and I would encourage you to do it and think about what your toolkit has allowed you to capture in terms of performance in the last year. And then finally, and arguably most importantly, breathe. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Make sure that you're taking care of what you're putting in your mind, putting in your body, and your breath is one of the most important things to focus on if you want to have more mindful routines in your life. I hope this was helpful. As always, thanks so much for watching Market Misbehavior. Do me a favor, hit like, put a comment below. Tell me which of these steps you are most excited about or which ones you're struggling with, and let's work on it together. Make sure you hit your notifications as well so you'll know every time I come up with a new video. From everyone here at Market Misbehavior, wish you well in 2021. We'll talk to you again soon.